Hi, and welcome back to my Excel VBA series. Now in this tutorial, what we're going to do is we're going to take things a stage further in importing our data from the CSV file. So if I have a look here, this is the data as it came in from the CSV file, and if you remember we selected this and it had been vertically underneath with a whole load of bump as the headers, and we've now cleaned this up a bit. But that row there is extra things that I put into the data just so that we could see which was the first and which was the second set of data. So we're now going to clean this further, and we're also going to use VBA to turn this into a table. And what we're going to do is we're going to assume that we might have 10 or 20 different sets of data going across, and what we're going to do is we're going to turn the first one into a table, and we're also going to strip out this formatting here and turn it into proper dates. In other words, it's not going to have the dots there, it's going to have a / because that is not a date format at the moment. So even though it says it's a date format up here, it's not actually a date format. That's been recognized as a text format. Okay, so how do we get started? Well, first thing to do is to start recording a macro. We'll just leave it called whatever it is, make sure it's in this workbook, and click OK. So we're now recording. We can go ahead and do the first step towards cleaning up, which is deleting that extra row. I'm now going to select cell A1 and Control-T to turn it into a table. Now this is going to turn this into whatever the next sequential table number is, and we're going to change our code to change it into something else that we want to call that table. And we're now going to select all of the cells within there, and we're going to turn that lot. We're going to do a find and replace to turn it into a proper date format. So we want to find a full stop and replace it with a / and replace all, and click OK. Now that looks all well and good, but if we drag that slightly wider, we just scroll down just to make sure that that is all done, and that looks pretty good. Okay, what do we want to do now? That's it. We want to stop recording, and we now want to apply those same things over here. So you'll notice first of all that initially we selected A1. For the next one we want to select E1. Now these are referred to as row 1 column 1 and row 1 column 5. So just bear that in mind when we come on to looking at the VBA loop that we're going to create. So here's the code that's been created so far, and I'm just going to rename that one, and I'm going to call it ConvertDataToTables. And I'll delete that as well because we don't need that seeing as we renamed it. And just to explain what this code is doing, the first one there is selecting what was in row 2 and then deleting it and shifting everything else up. Next thing is going to select cell A1, that's fine. And the next thing is going to be on my active sheet, I'm going to create a new list object using this range here. Now the first thing I want to change is I want to change that range because I want it to be whatever cell I've got selected, I want it to be the current region of that cell. So active cell dot current region. That's what I'm going to use to turn into my table, and my table name itself, I'm going to call it something else over here. So I want it to be table, and I'm going to create a loop to run up here. So for x equals 1 to 2, and I'm just going to do that initially, and that doesn't like it, so I need to space it in there. For x equals 1 to 2, and just down here at the bottom I'm going to say next x. And actually I don't want it to be 1 to 2 because I'm going to use this to specify the cells that I go to here. So I actually want it to be number 1 over here, but over here I want it to be number 5.
So I'm just going to say actually equals x equals 1 to 5, step 4. In other words, each time I go through the loop, I want you to jump forward 4. So it will go straight from 1 to number 5, and actually the second time it runs through, it will be 5. And we'll just see that when we actually test the code. Now the next thing I'm going to do down here is define a name for a variable, and I'm going to call this my table name. And this is going to equal TBL data name and X. And now in here, what I want to do is refer to my table name. And that there needs to be in brackets rather than, and you notice that that's correct because that's now changed. It's recognizing that as a variable rather than just as text itself. So if I change this back to do the capitalizations, you'll see this one change as well when I come away from it. So that's how you can test to see if a variable has been recognized. That's good, so that has been recognized. Now here, what we're going to do is we're going to go to range A2 select. Now that's fine, but actually again I don't want to do range A2 because when I run this variable the second time I want to be over here, so I want to do 2 and 5. Now that I can do by using the value of X, and so what I'm going to do is rather than A2 select, I'm going to say active sheet dot cells, and it's going to be 2, X select, and the range selection down, that's right, active window small scroll down, don't need that, that was just me scrolling down the screen. And what this is going to be is, this is the bit where it does the replacing the selection, and that one there I'm going to move outside of my loop, and I'm also going to copy and paste that, and I'm going to change that to E to E, and I'm going to make it 15, and that's just changing the column width rather than just dragging it. That's going to make it a specific size. I don't need the small scroll, and I don't think I need to refer to that as the date. Okay, so let's have a look at this, and that should all work. We think that will work. Let's have a quick look at the code here. Excel download active region, yeah, my table name. Let's have a go and see if that works. First of all, let's come back in here, do Control Z a few times. So we've gone back and we've actually got that row back in. Otherwise, we'll be deleting a row of data. So now I'm going to step through this, and I'm just going to move it down so we can see what's going on. I'm doing F8 to select, so it's selected row 2. It's now deleted row 2 and moved everything else up. It's now selected A1, and I'm just going to scroll down in my data here because I've remembered that I forgot something. What I actually need to do is there, I need to copy range A1 select, and just inside my loop down here I actually need to paste it in and have it as E1 select, and that will actually come up here and select that cell before it goes into the second instance of the loop. Okay, so let's carry on with this. So I'm carrying on pressing F8. This is now saying my table name, which at the moment is empty. My table name has now become my table name 1, and there we go. So this has turned that into table data name 1, which is TBL data name and that. Active sheet, number 2, so 2, 1, so row 2, column 1, and select. Selected all those cells going down to the bottom of that data set and replaced all the full stops with a /. This has now gone across to here, and it's now going to do the same to this one. So here we go. Table name is 1, now it's table name 5. Turned it into a table, selected the cell below, selected all the cells which have those dates in it, turned them all, and resized the column widths. Okay, so that seemed to work perfectly. The only thing that seems slightly odd is here, and you'll notice that there are some right justified, some left justified, and I'll just explain what that is. It's a bit of an anomaly. If I select all of these and change them all not into dates, so if I change them into dates it does nothing. If I change them all into numbers, for example, it only changes some of them into numbers. If I change them all back into dates, they're not all being recognized as dates. Now there is an easy way of doing this. Don't need to code it in. I'm going to go over here, just type the number 1 into a cell and copy it. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all of those, and I'm going to paste and I'm going to multiply that 1 into all of these cells. So effectively I'm going to take the value that's in there, multiply every single thing by 1 and click OK. And now if I change them all back into dates, you'll notice now they are all correctly in as dates. So let's just do that again over here. Click on that one, Control C to copy, click over here, Control Shift down to select the whole range, and then Control Alt V to bring up the paste special, multiply and OK, and then convert them all into short date format. Now if you want to see what the VBA code looks like for doing that, just go ahead, record yourself a macro as you do it, and then you'll be able to see the code. Okay, I hope that's been useful, and thank you for listening.